The 3-body Tech Infinity is marketed as a Transient shaper, but you get attack, body and sustain controls, which I think makes this plugin qualify as an envelope shaper. The plugin works in both single band mode as well as a 4-band multi-band mode. With envelope shapers you usually get the attack and release or sustain controls, and often you can change the length of the attack as well. Infinity does that, but what is very interesting is the body control, and that is what makes this plugin stand out for me. The body controls the waveform just after the attack and before the sustain of a sound. And I think this is really smart because this controls a part of the audio with especially percussive instruments where you normally don't have much direct control of. Here's the difference between the three. This body can also work wonders on a vocal. Here's some boominess happening in the lower end.
Take a moment to realize. Gotta catch it before it passes on by. Now's the time.
When you use the plugin in multiband and turn down body and a bit of sustain in that boomy area, the vocal sounds a lot more polished.
Gotta catch it before it passes on by. Now's the time. Take a moment to realize. Take a moment to realize. Gotta catch it before it passes on by. Gotta catch it before it passes on by. Now's the time. Gotta catch it before it passes on by.
Unfortunately, the plugin does not have an option to change the volume of an entire frequency band to compensate for overall level change after you worked on the envelope. Even the stock Cubase multiband envelope shaper does offer this option. There is an overall makeup level control, only not per band. Before we continue, please make sure to subscribe and hit that little like button. So you can change the length of the attack, but also the length of the body. If you change the attack, it doesn't change the start of body. The same goes with length of the body. It doesn't affect the start of the sustain. There must be some overlap happening. In the review I did about the BSA drum bus, I mentioned that I really missed a limiter so you can use its Transient shaper to mix into limiting. 3-body Tech has thought of this. There's a limiter right here. This one is fixed and stops everything at 0 decibels. It would be even more ideal if you would get a limiter per band. Because when you really push a certain band, the level differences can get out of hand. Louder levels can get too loud if you're not careful. A limited pump band would come in very handy. Now let's try to add some life in this next drum loop. I want more attack, but when I increase the overall attack, the kick gets too much presence. I want most and for all the snare to become more defined. So multiband it is. Let's go over the individual bands. The lowest band of the kick could use a little bit less sustain and body. As you noticed, this all is quickly done with Trinity. The display uses a right to left scrolling waveform, so you can see how the envelope shaping affects your audio, and this is a good way to show it. When you enable multiband, it still uses this same right to left scrolling, but divided in 4 screens, each with its own frequency range. I find this rather distracting and not really clear. I understand this is a consequence of having the need to show how the waveform is affected. Maybe a sort of color code with different colors for attack, body and sustain over the entire frequency spectrum like you see with Adapter Sculpt, and use a dividing method like with Saturn 2 or for instance Waves C6 would be more clear. One particular gem of this envelope shaper is the inclusion of sidechain triggering. The sidechain can work on the attack, body and sustain in both overall controls as well in multiband. This gives a huge control over for instance ducking. The plugin offers up to 16 times oversampling if you want at the cost of CPU usage. I got up to 50% at 16 times oversampling. Without oversampling I get about 2% CPU usage and no latency. Overall I like this plugin. If you need an envelope shaper with a lot of control, go check this one out and see if it fits in your audio toolshed.